Climate Warming and Wildfires by Courtney Bates, Murphy Bird, Emma McLeod, and Lauren Doucetti. The article we will be discussing today is Warming and Earlier Spring Increase Western U.S. Forest Wildfire Activity. Increasing frequency and duration of wildfires have become harder to manage as wildfires grow larger and larger. These wildfires are affecting towns, communities, and ecosystems in a negative manner. Greenhouse gas and CO2 emissions continue to rise as wildfires grow more rampant. Major competing explanations of rampant wildfires include changes in climate and land use history. Land use history problems can be resolved by ecological restoration and fuel management. However, climate change does not yet have a specific solution to stop the growth and abundance of wildfires. Causes of increased wildfire activity derived from climate change include decreased moisture, an early snowmelt season, an earlier spring season, which makes it get warmer faster, and longer summer droughts.
Next, we will talk about the competing explanations. The first competing explanation is climate. Climate change can be defined as a change in global or regional climate patterns. Climate change is an indirect explanation for the increasing number of wildfires occurring in the United States. Temperatures increasing and decreasing affect many environmental factors, which is why this is an indirect explanation. It can affect how long or short seasons are, for example, when the snow melts and spring begins, the moisture of soil, and the frequency of droughts. Researchers have found a positive correlation between climate change and the frequency as well as size of wildfires to climate change. Some of these correlations have to do with because of the snow melting sooner and dry seasons like spring and summer beginning, more droughts can occur, which is just a recipe for wildfires to occur in the United States. The second competing explanation found in this article is land use effects. Land use consists of management by people and plays a more direct factor into the suppression as well as cause of wildfires in North America. It is a more direct factor because it is of people directly causing and affecting the environment. For example, in the late 19th century, researchers took notice that excessive livestock grazing and logging seemed to be an effective fire suppression system. However, after logging, when forests would begin to regrow and biomass would accumulate, wildfire sizes would increase, and the effectiveness of fire suppression would decrease, meaning that as the forests would begin to grow back and heal from the excessive grazing or logging, more wildfires would begin to occur.
1,166 large forest wildfires from 1970 to 2003 from federal land management units were studied. The data was compared with corresponding hydroclimatic and land surface variables. Timing of spring and snow melt was measured using Stewart and colleagues' dates of the center of mass of annual flow for snow melt dominated streamflow gauge records in western North America. The wildfire frequency is highly correlated with CT at gauges across the United States. Lower tercel CT1 equals early snowmelt years, upper tercel CT1 equals late snowmelt years. The October to September moisture deficit was used to measure cumulative difference between potential evapotranspiration due to temperature and actual evapotranspiration constrained by available moisture, indicator of drought stress on plants. The length of the wildfire season was measured by finding the time between the reported first wildfire discovery date and the last wildfire control date. The results of increasing wildfires originate from changes in climate and temperature. The main findings are that The length of the wildfire season grew by 78 days, which is 64% when comparing 1970 to 1986 and 1987 to 2003. The average time between discovery and wildfire for a wildfire increased from 7.5 days from 1970 to 1986 to 37.1 days from 1987 to 2003.
The different graphs and diagrams shown on this slide reiterate the results found by the article. The first graph shows the correlation between forest wildfires and spring and summer temperatures. The second graph shows the correlation between wildfires and the timing of the spring snowmelt in different areas. And the final graph shows forest vulnerability in different areas, and this depends on the soil moisture found. The discussion section of this article includes all key results and conclusions that the study found. The most important conclusion is that while land use history is a factor for wildfires, climate change is a far more impacted factor and is the greater cause of this change in wildfire activity. In the 1980s, wildfires were infrequent and lasted for shorter duration. However, in more recent years, wildfires have become far more frequent and last for much longer durations. This transition was found to be correlated with warmer spring seasons and summer seasons, dry vegetation, and early spring snowmelt and decreased winter precipitation, as this affects the soil moisture found in these areas. The areas that are impacted the greatest from this transition are the Northern Rockies forest and Northern California. The changes in the Northern Rocky wildfires are due primarily to climate changes, while the transition in Northern California forests is due to both land use effects and climate. Other forest areas have seen the same transition in wildfire length and destruction, but they aren't impacted as much because they're much smaller forests, so the numbers don't impact the greater number. The conclusions found in the previous slide are important because they reveal that simply restoring the ecology of these regions and controlling fuel use are not effective methods of reversing this dangerous transition in wildfire behavior. This revelation allows us to begin constructing solutions that will help to solve this problem, rather than focusing time and energy on trying to solve it with these unproductive solutions. Finally, the conclusions of this study also have regional and global implications. One of these implications is that the pattern of warmer springs and summers will consist over the following years, which increases the dangerous cycle of wildfires, causing far more destruction to these regions affected. The reduced forest densities and composition from the fires will then affect carbon pools. Our communities and ecosystems will directly experience the effects of this, and will be in danger due to the decreased amount of CO2 absorbed in trees in high elevation forests.